So we have cards out. Hi. Say I have no volume there. There we go. I have cards ready if someone wants to say stop.
Stop.
Stop. All right. Got it. Got it. Something about our purpose. And this is the drawing. Hopefully you've received the drawing of this little giraffe. And if not, I think Troy will put that in the chat. So you can, if you're quick, you can do a pencil drawing of this little giraffe. And if you haven't received the email over the weekend to draw this giraffe, and you're new with us, then you can request by emailing me directly to wildc188@gmail.com, and I'll put you on the weekly notice. There is no obligation for anything other than that, and it doesn't get shared. It doesn't go anywhere else other than this group, so you can be confident in that. And so we have this fun little baby giraffe. It's just a caricature, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So don't think that when you're painting, if you get frustrated with it, don't think, oh no, it's horrible. They're going to be as cute as a button when we're finished. It works, I would say, every time. So not to get stressed on that. And we've drawn our card for today, so we have that ready that I'll read at halftime. You have your caricature of the baby giraffe. And we'll just get into art mode and just do just a few deep breaths just to get into art mode. So nothing too strenuous. We'll just take a deep breath in, hold it at the top for a moment. Look at something around the room that makes you smile, something that makes you happy, and then release that breath and drop those shoulders as you do that. So we'll do that 3 times just to get into art mode. So if this is your first time, welcome. If you've been coming for a while, thank you for returning. I'm honored that you're here. Creating Connections is glad that you're with us, and I'm glad that you're with us, and I'm glad I'm able to share this gift. And this is not a class for the need for perfection. This is the class just to share with like-minded artists and try something new and have some fun. Maybe this is a project that you would like to paint for a grandchild or a little child in your life for Christmas. You can put this in a frame if you like. Just a nice idea and something a little bit different. So let's take our first deep breath in and hold it at the top and find something that you like and smile and release. Drop those shoulders way down. There's lots of room there. If you're tight in this area, just give yourself a little massage. Next, deep breath in and hold it at the top. Lots of room for expansion there. Find something to smile and release. And our third deep breath in and hold it at the top. Find something to smile about. Give yourself a smile. Feels good inside and release. And for this art class, we will want to have 2 containers of water. One I like to keep clear, one I use for rinsing brushes. The one I keep clear is if I need to put clear water, just clean water onto my paper, I'll have it available. We'll want brushes. I have a number 3 pointed brush, a number 2 pointed brush, a number 4 pointed brush. And I've got one a little bit bigger. It's a number, it looks like a number 9 painted brush. It's just a little bit bigger. I say between a 0 and a 6 usually does the job with the size of paper that we're using. And we'll want some paints. Paints today are burnt sienna, which is the color of red clay pots. Ochre, which is a yellow golden color. Black, just for the little irises or little spots in the eyes of the giraffe. Cobalt blue And you can do a mix of cobalt blue and purple if you like, but that's optional. So that when we get to that point, when we're doing that, that's not till the end, but it's optional. You can mix them or do them separately or only use blue or only use purple. They're entirely up your choice. I will use the cobalt blue and I might mix in a little bit of purple. So at halftime, I'll read our card. So we have the finished picture up. We've taken our deep breaths. We have our card drawn for today for halftime. We have our brushes ready. We have water ready and paper towel just to tap our brushes off so we don't have an excess amount of water, or if we need to remove a little bit of paint. So with that, I'm going to turn around my camera and you'll see the sketch. So this is the sketch of the little giraffe, just a baby giraffe, just sort of hanging out. It's kind of fun. We're going to leave those eyes completely white, except for the irises. We're going to just paint those black. But as far as the giraffe, we're going to start, and I'm starting with my larger brush. This is a number 9 brush. If you have a 6 is fine, if that's all you've got. If you've got one a little bit bigger, this is a 9. I'm dipping it in my water and then into my ochre. So ochre is a yellow golden color. And I'm going to paint those little, I don't know what they're called on a giraffe, the little points on the top of his head. And I'm going to paint around the eyes. We're getting right into color. We're going to have some fun with this. We're leaving the insides of the ears. We're going to paint that in the burnt sienna. We're just doing the outside of the ears, and they're a little bit jagged. We may put a little bit of burnt sienna on there just for a little hair. We're going right around the eyes, leaving the eyes white. And there's the top of the head already. So we haven't wet, we're doing wet on dry. So we're using wet paint on a dry canvas. And remember, this is not about perfection. This is just about getting some paint on and having some fun with this project, giving you a little reason to smile. It's very cute. And if you decide you want to share this picture, give this picture as a gift, it's a nice idea as well. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of a line in between the two eyes. I'm going to let those sit joined together without paint in between. And I'm coming all the way around on the bottom of the mouth. So I can go right over those little nostrils because I am going to paint them a darker color. So if I put a light color on, it's easy to put a dark color over top. And I've got a little bit of pooling because I'm on an easel. So I'm just going to put my paper towel at the bottom, just hold it a little bit and it will absorb that excess paint. It'll just pick up that extra paint that I don't want too thick on there. And then picking up fresh ochre on my brush, I'm going to continue and I'm going to paint the body. So I'm painting the whole giraffe, even those little hoof marks on the bottom of the feet. I can paint those in the ochre. So the whole giraffe is this ochre color. So just take your time if you need to stay within the lines, if you need to work at that. It's a big area. And it doesn't have to be completely even. If we think about the fur on a giraffe, there's lights and darks. You think about the fur on any animal, there's lights and darks in different spots. So it doesn't have to be identically colored in every area. So we're just covering over the white in the body of this critter. Again, I've got a little bit of pooling at the bottom, so I'm just going to touch my paper towel on that, and that will pick up the excess without putting any extra marks on my paper. So someone's asking what color you can use instead of raw sienna. Raw sienna is the color of terracotta pots or clay pots, so it's a reddish color. So if you add a red color to ochre, you will come up with a raw sienna. So it's red and yellow mixed. And maybe you could try adding just a little bit of brown, just a touch of brown, just to get that earth tone. So we want to let this ochre on the face and the body dry before we put any other colors on, before we start to put on the sienna, the burnt sienna. So let's go ahead with black paint, and I'm using a smaller brush now. I'm not using that big one. I'm going to go into my black paint, and I'm just going to paint those little eyeballs in black. Just straight black. If you have gray, gray is fine. I'm looking for something dark. So we're just going to give our giraffe just a little bit of personality. And while we're waiting still for the body to dry, we're going back into where we're going to use next our burnt sienna. And burnt sienna, as I said, is the color of clay pots, those red clay pots. And I'm just going to do the tail, and I'm giving it some little edges. I don't want it to be perfect. I do want it to be a little bit rough. And I'm just painting that tail. And I'm going back into the ochre, and I'm going to paint the lead up to the tail in ochre. And it looks a little bit darker because it's fresh ochre, but that's ochre. And if some of the burnt sienna starts to run down a little bit, it gives a nice color. That's okay, that's good. And back into burnt sienna, I'm going to do these little talons on the top of the head. And I'm giving a little bit of a rough edge. And then filling the center in with that burnt sienna. And the same on the other one. I'm going to give a little bit of a rough edge. So we just completed our picture step by step, just by letting some of the areas dry in between. So we just go through one step at a time. And hopefully your head has dried in around the outside of the ears. And we're going to fill in the same color, that burnt sienna or clay pots red terracotta color. We're just going to paint in the center of those ears. So there's one ear, and they can have some little points. They don't have to be perfect. And the same on the other side. I can just do a few little rough edges where the hair would be. And I'm going to bring that right to the eyeball. So this little giraffe has some hair growing. It's just a little bit, just starting out. So we're just going to give it some little hairs on the top of its head. So I'm still using that same color, the burnt sienna. There's really not a lot of variety of different colors in this picture. It's using a lot of the burnt sienna and the ochre. And on the other side, I'll also give some hairs just at the top of the head. And just a little bit of fuzziness with the burnt sienna, just on the ears, just a little bit of fuzziness, just near the bottom. And this little giraffe also has a little bit of facial hair, and we're going to do that with burnt sienna. Just a little bit on the edge. And on the other side as well. And so let's move on to the giraffe. We'll come back to this and we'll give this little nostrils a little bit of this burnt sienna. We're adding to the face now. And if it's not completely lined up, doesn't look perfect, don't worry, this is a caricature. This is supposed to be a funny little giraffe, so don't think it needs to be completely perfect. Have fun with it. That's what this is all about. And so sticking with this color, burnt sienna, now I'm hoping that your body is dry. If the body's not completely dry, you find you start to paint and it starts to star or feather a little bit, move on to another spot that you're sure is dry. And you can use the back of your hand just to test and see. And I say the back of your hand because we have oils in our fingers that could put a mark on your canvas. The back is probably the best indicator for you. And let's start to give this little giraffe some spots. So you've drawn some little circles or little ovals. They do not all have to be exactly the same size, nor do they all have to be round. If we look at it in our mind at what a giraffe looks like, they're all different shapes. Some are larger, some are smaller, but this is a baby giraffe, so we don't want those big giant marks yet. He hasn't got those yet. And no two giraffes have exactly the same spots. They're quite unique. They're all different. And you can see I'm just touching the paint on those spots. I'm just touching the tip of my brush. Just filling in that pencil circle or oval or whatever you've drawn. And we've got those nails on the hoofs or hooves. So I'm going to paint that also in the burnt sienna, but I'm going to paint those twice. So I'm going to paint them once and let them dry, and then I'll put a fresh color on top so it will be darker than the spots. So it will show up even darker than the giraffe spots. So remember, if you get stressed, if you're worried about this, if you get a little anxious or anything, just take a deep breath and drop those shoulders down. And remember, this is just a piece of paper. If you're using a canvas, it's just a canvas. This is not life altering. You will be able to, if you choose to, go through the recording and watch it again and do it if you're not happy with your first go round. So there's no need to panic on it. So just take a deep breath. Now, in order for the legs to show up and the creases in the body, we need to add a little bit of darker color where we've penciled in those lines. We've used ochre on the body. We've used burnt sienna for the spots and for the nails. We'll come back and do those nails again and the tip of the tail. But we're going to go back in with fresh ochre. And with fresh ochre, I can paint on top of those lines, which will give me a natural divide, but I'm using the same color that I've got as the base color. Just because it's a fresh color, it's going to give that impression that it's a darker color, even though it's the same color. So wherever those creases are, right to the top of the foot, and you can do the bottom of the leg as well. And we're just about at halftime. Believe it or not, we're halfway through. So the halfway card, the spirit junkie card that I have that was drawn for today for all of us is my genuine desire to serve clears the path for me to step into my purpose. So whatever you're doing to serve, whether it's going out to work, doing a job, providing income for a family, taking care of loved ones, taking care of children, taking care of yourself or your spouse, whatever the genuine desire that you have to serve is clearing the path for you to step into your true purpose. Well, thank you for that card. I'm going to give that a little more thought today. So let's look at our giraffe now. We've got some deep lines here because of this fresh ochre. So I'm using a wet brush. This is a number 3 pointed brush, and it's just wet, just dampened with water, not soaking wet. But I'm going to start to just blend and soften those lines. So I'm blending that right into the body. If I hit on that other color, that burnt sienna, I can lift that off. That's okay. And just blend that a little bit, but I'm just softening some of those lines just with a dampened brush. I'm just moving that color a little bit so it's not quite as deep.
Cathy, do we put the the ochre by the nails as well?
I don't have it on the bottom. No. What we'll do when we do a darker color, we'll just do a little line to finish that up.
Okay,
So you could, I just didn't want to do it twice. So I was just waiting until I did my second coat, but I'm just softening up my lines at this point that are on the giraffe. And if I hit on any of those dots, I'm just gonna lift off some of that and blend it in. So we're not looking for an even coat. If it starts to get a little blurred, a little bit different in color here and there, that's okay. So I'm just softening some of those lines. So you can see they were there and now they're a little bit different. So it's giving a little bit more texture to the body. A little bit of lights and darks here and there. And if you've softened up those lines, then let's go back to those nails with the burnt sienna and we'll darken those up. They're going to look quite a lot darker with the fresh coat. And we can round the bottom of the foot. And I'll round the bottom of the other foot. The same at the bottom, dark coat. Really look quite defined, deeper than what's on the body, and rounding that foot, and rounding the other foot. And the inner part of that tail, I'm going to darken that up as well. Now, if you want more of a golden color to your giraffe, you can add more ochre in the center. From the neck down, we can just add a little bit more ochre for a more golden color. If you're happy with your giraffe the way it was and you don't want to put on that extra, you don't have to. If you want to lift some of that off, just using a dampened brush will help you with that. So I'm just doing a little bit of a wash with extra ochre. And I'm going to leave that tummy a little bit lighter. There's a little bit of tufts of fur just at the center. We'll add that on at the bottom. And again, if there's anything that you want to change just by using a damp brush, and then wiping off on paper towel. You can lift off and lighten. You can change the texture, change the direction just by lifting off. And we can add a little bit to the legs, a little bit of ochre. Just here and there, just lightly. The sound caterer.com is on the chats for Rachel. If you get a chance to vote for her, that would be great. And so let's move on to our cobalt blue. So I'm starting with cobalt blue with a little bit of water mixed in, and I'm using my larger brush, and I'm going to start at the top of the hair that's sticking out above the ear on the right hand side. Now, it may take all of what's in you to not fill in every bit of white space on your canvas. Oops, I got a little bit of pooling there, so just tap that off. So we're only looking for a halo effect around the outside of the giraffe. So I'm starting from the giraffe, going around the giraffe, around the eyes, and I'm only doing a halo effect in this cobalt blue. So I'm not going to the very corner, the outside of the canvas. I'm only creating a halo effect around the giraffe. And if for whatever reason you touch on your giraffe and you have a little bit of blue mixed in, like here, there's a little bit of blue in there, but it kind of disappears. Kind of gives an edge to the giraffe anyways. But like we just want that halo effect around the outside. So I'm just getting wet paint and just brushing from the giraffe away, just away from the giraffe. If it's lighter or darker in some areas, that's okay. It doesn't all have to be identical, but I am going around the eye because I want that white eye to stay there. I want that shocked look, that fun effect. And where I'm getting pooling, I'm just going to use my paper towel and just pick up the excess. And as I said, I understand that it may take all of what's in you to not do all the way to the outside. So let there be that white on the far side, on the outside, away from the giraffe. Let that sit and stay there. I don't know about you, but it makes me smile. Now we talked about purple, a little bit of blend of purple and blue. So I have cobalt blue and a little bit of purple mixed together. And when I put the two of those together, it gives me that little purple. It's a little bit of a purple look in the paint. So I can pop that on top. And again, where I have pooling of excess color, I'm just going to touch with my paper towel. It should pick up the excess. So I'm just lightly touching, just letting the color just flow off the tip of the brush. And if you find you have colors that start to run a little bit, if you have a dampened brush, you can use and just tap it off on the paper towel, and you can just take and lift off some of that excess. This is a painting, the way this is painted. If you have some cauliflower marks, go ahead and use your brush and lift those off. And the brush strokes, it's okay if they show in this picture. We're not looking for a smooth, even tone. And if you've got that far, let's use a dampened brush. It's a wet brush tapped off on paper towel, so it's just damp with water lightly. And we're going to lift off some paint in the center of our giraffe. Just in the belly region, we're going to lift off and lighten that area. So I'm just lifting off a little bit more each time. If I need to dampen my brush again, I can, and tap it off on paper towel. And then back onto the canvas, just lifting off to give a nice light colored tummy to our giraffe. So sometimes it takes, not rubbing really hard, but sometimes it takes a couple of times going over the same spot. And on the, just under the tail, we want a bright spot. So we're going to lift off just to the top of the leg. So a damp brush, put your brush in water, take it back out, tap it off on the paper towel, and then just rub it. The paint has no choice but to move. And on the other side, just a little section, only a quarter of an inch at the top of the other leg. We'll just lift off some paint, just a little bit at the top of the leg, just a tiny bit. And we'll lift off some paint on the bottom of the opposite leg. So just on the bottom, just going to lighten that spot. So I'm just lifting off some paint. So you can see just by lifting off that little bit, it just gives a little bit of a light source. Oh, Jan, I'm sorry that you've just come on now. So the recording will be available, so you'll be able to see it, but welcome. And let's give this giraffe a little bit of a lighter forehead just by lifting off paint. So again, I'm dipping my brush into the water, tapping it off on paper towel, and then rubbing to lift the paint. So I'm just looking for a little bit lighter forehead. You can see that just brightens it up just a little bit. And lastly, we'll do inside the face area. We're going to lift off some paint. Just lighten that up. I'm leaving my edges, but I'm just doing inside. Just lightening up a little bit. So let's put your brush into the water, tap it off on paper towel so you have a damp brush, and just lifting off paint. And it may not look like it's happening, but your edges will be darker, so you will be able to see once it starts to dry a little bit. So you can see my edges are a little bit darker, but my center has that brightness to it. So we still have a little bit of darker in this area around the nostrils, and just coming around the eyes is a little bit darker, but the center is lighter. Damaris is saying, yay, we'll all be back on the same time. It's funny, isn't it? This time change business. Well, it's a couple of weeks in between, but we'll be back to normal soon. So if there are any other spots that you think you want to add, just make a little bit lighter, just use your dampened brush and you can play and lighten some things up or move some paint around. If you've taken off too much, you can always add it back on. Now what's left to do is to decide where do you want to put your artist signature and what will that look like. Now you can, even if you choose to, I'm just going to make the center of that tail just a little bit lighter. I'm just going to add a little bit of brightness in the center of that tail. There we go.
Cathy,
So
are you
whatever,
checking around the eyes anything, or that white spot? Do we have to make a little bit of black with the black paint, or no?
you can put whatever you like around the eyes. I have ochre here already around my eyes, ochre around here from painting, and there should be blue where you painted blue on the outside. But other than that, and if you want to, certainly you can go ahead and outline them. You can, this is your art. So if there's something different that you want to do, be my guest. Please use your artist impression and have fun with it.
Thank you.
I think the last thing I'm going to do is use my burnt sienna and just give those little tufts of hair on top of the head just a little fresh look. They just look like they got a little bit worn down with the blue paint. So I'm going to add those back in again just to cuten them up a little bit. And I'm going to sign my name on the bottom of this, and I hope you're comfortable signing your art. It's important that you take credit for the work that you do, but it's also important if we do a collage shot, lots of times people can't find their own, and it's because they haven't signed them. So even though we all have little unique parts to our art, when they're all together, they can look very similar. So please take credit for the work that you've just done. And even if you're giving it away as a gift to a family member or friend, when you sign your art, it says you're proud of what you're giving. And then they can say, oh, look, this is done by so-and-so. And so that's what you can do in 1 hour. I hope you've enjoyed that. And I think we're a couple of minutes away, so I'm not sure if you're working on your eyes or lightening color or adding hair or finishing painting, doing your outside edges. But that concludes our art for today. So I hope you've enjoyed that.